everyone, and welcome back to ATA TV. I'm Sarah Solomon, and joining me now is Elliott Wilson with CDW Healthcare. Elliott, thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Now, we are enjoying beautiful San Antonio, and even more so, ATA 2023. Lots of trends, lots of great conversation happening here on the show floor and beyond. So for you personally, what are you enjoying most about the conference, and what trends are you seeing?
Sure. Oh, gosh. I mean, I think what I'm finding the most is there's an excitement, a buzz amongst the folks here, really related, I think, I trace it back to the omnibus bill that got passed at the end of last year, which gave us and the market a sense of stability. Now that we have that, and now that those provider organizations feel that stability, they can now focus on being creative without feeling like the rug's about to be pulled out from them from any moment, right? And that's really thanks to the advocacy work of organizations like the ATA, like Faegre Drinker, and Foley and Lardner, and Nixon Gwilt. I mean, these teams that have come together to advocate on behalf of providers and clinicians and patients to get that stuff passed has been wonderful. Now, the challenges aren't done, but we've made a lot of progress, and that's really, really special. I think in terms of trends I'm hearing about is, I mean, it's buzzword bingo, right? But artificial intelligence is on everybody's lips during this conference, and that's very exciting to me. That's where I live, that's where my work is, and I'm totally here for it. I mean, even in my shirt right here, right, it says "Talk Data to Me." It's a great shirt from Intermountain that I got, but I'm here for it. Let's have the conversation about how these kinds of technologies can really make a difference for our clinicians. But we need to be, at the same time as being excited about it, we have to be mindful to be rigorous in its evaluation and how it's applied. We need things like a common terminology rather, so that we're all kind of referring to the same things in the same way. I mean, is it computer vision or is it machine vision? Is it what's diagnostic AI versus clinical automation or remote process automation? All of these things. What does the term digital even mean? You know, those are the questions that I think are still left to be answered. And that's where I get excited. Now, I get to work as a co-chair on the digital transformation SIG with my very good friend Joe Brennan from TitleCare, and that's the conversation we had just this morning in our SIG breakfast and then our SIG meeting for digital transformation, where we had such a robust conversation. Like I said, the excitement is all there. So that's really kind of, in terms of trends, I see what's going on. What I'm most excited about, I think, has got to be the innovation challenge that's coming tomorrow evening. I was a judge for that, and watching all those different organizations come to market. It's just really exciting. I get to now co-MC it tomorrow night, so that's a lot of fun. Shout out to our dear friend Samir Batra, who was not able to be here for our MC this week, but he is with us in spirit for sure.
Awesome. Well, I must say, I love your energy, enthusiasm, and passion for the industry. It like literally exudes from your soul, so I love that. And you're right. I mean, there's so many conversations that are being had here at the ATA, and that's part of the value of being here, is kind of addressing some of the things that you mentioned, right? Terminology, really getting on the same page so we can move forward together in the same direction. So I love all of that. Now, you know, CDW Healthcare has been around a long time. And most people think of them as, you know, where I buy my computer, right? So what part does CDW have to play in all of this?
It's a really great question, and you're right. I mean, CDW has been around since the 1980s, and for the longest time we were your traditional value-added reseller kind of organization. And I think what a lot of people don't know is, even over the last couple of years, there's been such a shift to becoming our strategic IT partner that really understands healthcare. Now, CDW is huge. It's a Fortune 200 IT solutions provider organization. They serve every vertical. At the beginning of this year, following some explosive growth in the healthcare market for us, we split off healthcare as its own division. And what's really unique about that is we have experts and services in so many critical areas like cloud strategy, cybersecurity, application and design and management, digital health, patient experience, you name it, we've got it. But then we pair that with a team of strategists like myself who all came from the provider industry. We all experienced the challenges firsthand that we're trying to solve. And so what we do is we work in conjunction with our partner ecosystem, with our deep technology bench, to develop solutions that drive specific outcomes that our customers are looking for in a way that I don't think any other organization that focuses on the things that we do can possibly bring to the table.
So, you mentioned you're a health strategist, of course. So how did you get here? Like, what is Elliott's story to how you got to where you are now?
It's a little kind of out there. So I fell into this business. I was an intern in a healthcare organization, in a provider organization back when I was 16, and then I spent the next 20 years just living within that organization. I worked all over that organization. And I started to build out virtual care programs and service lines and using different modalities in different care environments. I built out strategic PMO organizations and then helped build out the digital transformation office organizations. And then, all of a sudden the pandemic hit and, all that work, pretending to be Sisyphus pushing a boulder up a hill for years and years and years, suddenly the boulder tips over and all of my dreams had come true. And I found myself saying well, this is wonderful. What's next? And I found myself here with CDW Healthcare with a scale and scope of technology expertise behind me that makes me so excited to go work on these problems in a way I was never able to do when I was working for a provider organization. So that's a little bit of my story.
That's awesome and very influential, I'm sure, to some of our viewers. So what's on the horizon for CDW Healthcare? Sure,
yeah. So I think where we're looking toward is just more and more automation. I think about it like this: addition through subtraction. Now, that's an HR term that people have used for a long time, right? But when I think about it, I'm thinking, where can we remove barriers, administrative barriers that we don't necessarily need humans to do, to take that workload off of clinicians so that they can focus on their patients? Where can we take administrative burden off of patients so that they can focus more on their own health? That's where I see it's going. So we have a whole healthcare next strategy at CDW. And we think about technology related to healthcare in three different pillars. The foundations of care, which is where you have to have things that you have to have. Cybersecurity, it's got to be strong foundations. Your data center strategy, your networking strategy, all of those things that have to be really in tip-top shape before you can focus on anything else. We have a pillar that's really focused around optimizing care. And that's how do we ensure that we're using the right technologies to make care easier? And then we have a future of care pillar, and that's where I work, where we look at our strategy around what we call patient room next. And when we think about patient room next, the term patient room is intended to be evolutionary. A patient room is now what we consider to be wherever the patient is, whether that patient is in a hospital, if that patient is in a clinic, if that patient is at home, if that patient is walking down the street, that's the patient room. And then the term next we think about is there's ever more something that's coming next. So we look at the technology not 5 years down the road, not 10 years down the road, what's coming down the pike that's really going to drive change? Where we find that happening is things like we have to make it an easy button, right? It's got to be seamless. IT has to melt into the background. We have to make sure that we're providing real-time insights for people. So when data is generated and information is gleaned, that insight isn't a look-back report. It's I'm providing you, the clinician or the patient or whomever, with actionable information that you can use in a format you can use it at the moment of care, at the moment where I need to make a decision. That's very exciting. So there's enormous potential there, for sure.
So of course, with all the potential and a lot happening in the near future for telemedicine, challenges, we may foresee challenges, right? So,
Yeah.
so for you as a health strategist, what are some of those challenges that you foresee?
Well, like I said, I think it's the same Sisyphean hill that we had to focus on all the way up until March 13th, 2020, right? It's the same work. And it's the way I've always had to work, trying to convince people of the efficacy and the value of what we're trying to do here. I keep going back to reminding people, it doesn't have to be this hard. It doesn't have to. The technology is there to make our lives easier. And maybe that's an elder millennial perspective, right? Where we look at it as like, we're kind of like digital natives, right? But it doesn't have to be that hard. I'll give you a for instance. I was flying down here to San Antonio, and I'm flying American. And I get there, I gotta drop my bag off. And I'm watching people struggle with the kiosks of how to get their bag checked. And none of them have their mobile app with their boarding pass that they can just scan, and then the system automatically takes care of everything that you're supposed to do because you've already taken care of everything online. They're all trying to figure out what button it puts, what makes this massive line. There's no process automation there. I was fascinated by this. And what I noticed was the lack of human interaction between the airline and the passengers. It created tension. And I said to myself, gosh, it doesn't have to be this hard. So I think we're continually going to have that challenge. Getting people to understand that AI and other technologies aren't going to replace clinicians. It can't. But computer-assisted clinicians or clinicians that know how to use those tools are always going to be more successful than clinicians that don't. And I don't mean successful just in their own career, because certainly they will, but I mean they're going to be more successful in terms of clinical outcomes. They're going to be more successful with achieving the ROI promise that whatever platform they're looking to use is intended for, right? I think if we just get into that mindset that it's not a replacement, it's an additive, we can reduce the burden, we can reduce the burnout that our clinicians are seeing, I think is a really powerful message. And I think what's really ironic is that in the end, digital, virtual, AI, machine as a service, computers, ironically, when we start to use them, it actually allows for more humanity. And that's really special to me.
I agree. It's kind of like what we experienced, throughout the pandemic, where we all almost got closer together as human beings behind a computer screen from the comfort of our homes, right? So it's like that same mentality.
That's right. I was more in touch with friends from college during the pandemic than I have been in the years since college. Right. We would hold weekly virtual trivia.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's wonderful.
Yeah, I totally agree, and that's some great perspective and great insight. So Elliott, I want to thank you for spending a portion of your time here with us on ATA TV.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You got it. Thank you. Keep up the great work. And that does it for us on this edition of ATA TV. I'm Sarah Solomon.